Welcome to True Story, everybody. I am Lizzy Ross. I'm your host for this evening and any evening of True Story. And thank you for joining in this really obviously awkward time. I am so thankful to be here. I want to remind you that the theme tonight is leave your message after the beep. We always have a theme. I am gonna begin a quick piece myself to kind of get the evening started, and then we will proceed. So, my friends, true story. My mother, who I love dearly, struggles with dementia. And as she is turning 88 years old this month, she's earned the respite from remembering people's names and some nouns. It's the struggle of not remembering when people have called her that is the most prevalent when I speak with her. Because for as long as I've known her, which is as long as I have known anything, my mother's feeling is that no one calls her enough. Obviously, concerned with feeling abandoned isn't funny at all, but when we were younger and she could remember everything, there was still no way to call her enough. One of her standard greetings for me when I have called has been, well, I knew you'd call eventually. She once left me a message saying, oh, nothing important, just called to say hi, no need to call back. And then the very next day she called and she left a message that started with, I know I said you didn't need to call, but you didn't. My brothers and I have resigned ourselves now to the understanding that it doesn't matter how many times or how often we call, she probably won't remember. And even if she did, it wouldn't be enough. So when we call, we distract her by talking about something she keeps up with, which normally would be the Red Sox or her beloved New England Patriots. And now that we're all shut-ins and there's no sports to follow, we may run out of subject material unless we talk about the president. She cannot remember his name, but she does remember how much she hates him. So there's plenty to talk about there. I can't help but let myself wonder what kind of old person I'm going to become. While we're all indoors and each day of the week becomes Blur's Day, the umpteenth of January, I can't keep track of which season of what show I binge watched the night before. And I can't help but feel like I'm getting a little preview into my elder ages. Thankfully, I don't seem to be showing signs of growing bitterness that some older people manifest. As long as I'm doing something creative and can get away with privately eating like a child, I think I'll be pretty pleasant. In my oncoming dottiness, my goal is to become a constant source of entertainment for those around me. You know, like the old person who surprises you by answering the door stark naked and says something like, oh, I thought this was the other door. Or not only naked, but with the spaghetti pot on her head because I sound great when I sing inside this thing. As a lifelong aspiring working actor, I've always worried that I'd finally get my big break when I could be cast as the next Where's the Beef lady. For those of you who are too young to know or too old to remember the Where's the Beef lady, she was an old woman in a Wendy's commercial, and she was sharply disappointed in the lack of beef in her fast food burger and went around shouting, "Where's the beef?" My worst fear for her was that she tried to get work as an actor all of her life and then finally hit it big when she was old and cranky enough to be completely authentic when she shouted, "Where's the beef?" Now I think, well, if her type of career is the worst case scenario, at least I'd finally have something to retire on. She did well for herself looking for the beef. I just hope she was talking about the burger and not looking for where she put some beef she thought she'd remembered picking up at the store, but couldn't remember where she put it. I thought of her recently while I was getting a few things out of the trunk of my car because I found a jar of pesto that I must have rolled out of my Trader Joe's bags a while back. I thought I bought some, but when I unpacked the bags, I couldn't find it. And then, I don't know, 10 days later, there it was, rolling around the back of my trunk. It's been a little cold out lately, so it turns out it was fine to eat, which is good, because it's a pandemic now, and we may all have to become more than willing to eat foods we find in the car trunks. Which brings me back to things I look forward to in old age. I'm hoping to age more like my father, who is 90 years old and may even see this. He FaceTimes me, sometimes several times a day, and sometimes on purpose. He keeps busy trying to plan another cruise around the Panama Canal or Nova Scotia. Like everyone at any age, he binge watches Netflix on his iPad or his MacBook Air. He often FaceTimes me while he's watching a movie to ask, Lizzy, I'm watching that actor I like. What's his name? It's that guy right there. I have to remind him as he points to the screen that I'm not actually sharing a desktop with that man and I cannot see him, but it got confusing. So now I just answer Sam Elliott, because most of the time I'm right. My dad really likes Sam Elliott. My dad lives his life fully, mostly at home without wearing pants. But in this Corona apocalypse thing, we all are. So that's fine. So I've been thinking of writing some instructions for myself to grow old by. Simultaneously, I have also been writing a list of things to keep in mind during the zombie apocalypse, when that finally happens. And surprisingly, both lists are remarkably alike. I'll share a few of them with you now. They're in no particular order, really, as I think nothing will be eventually. I hope these are helpful. They include things like, number one, hey, it's okay to forget some things. You don't need to know who the president is. Everyone else will be talking about that asshole / criminal / puppet / person. 2, using catchphrases like, where's the beef? Or hashtag Zoom meeting, or can I get an amen? Or I've fallen and I can't get up. People will remember you, and you never know. They might be moneymakers in the long run. 3, yes, it's okay to eat food you find in the trunk of your car. But for the love of God, please don't drive the fucking thing. And 4, at all times, do try to be a constant source of entertainment for your loved ones. It's fun. And yes, pants are optional. Thank you for listening. Hopefully I still have you all there. Our next reader is Heidi. Now I just need to find our Heidi. Please hold. Heidi, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much, Lizzy. This is so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm getting a lot of pings. I hope everything's going well. I don't know if I've made terrible mistakes or things are going well. I'll have to read, but hopefully this whole world won't feel so foreign next time we do it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you the stage, so to speak. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. True story. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, and I went to college in another small town in Connecticut. And when I graduated, you could not get me out of the suburbs fast enough. I moved right to the glorious island of Manhattan the second I had my degree in my sweaty little mitts. I majored in German and theater. I guess I thought I would do Brecht for the rest of my life. Theater and German, the language that gave the world Backpfeifengesicht, a word to describe a face that is just begging to be slapped. Yeah, I see you over there looking all superior French. Granted, you are absolutely gorgeous, but this is how you convey the number 99. 99, 4 20s, 10, 9. So maybe sit this one out. To give you an idea of how long ago this was, my first apartment in the city was a small but very charming one-bedroom down the street from the Guggenheim, and the rent was just under $400. Now it's probably a co-op that last sold for 1.7 million. I moved to New York to pursue a career as an actor, or as we called it back then, an actress. The acting bug bit me hard in the second grade when I played the dormouse. Yes, it was definitely typecasting in Alice in Wonderland. I had a wicked crush on a boy in my class who shall remain nameless. He knows who he is. And he was cast as the March Hare. So I got to sit next to him at the Mad Tea Party during all the rehearsals and performances. And sitting next to boys you have crushes on is, I think, one of the chief attractions of the theatrical arts. But no one ever had the good grace to tell me that I have no actual acting talent to speak of. There is a video of me doing a scene when I was in a sketch comedy group, and I answer the question I'm being asked well before the other actor has finished asking it. It's like there's a neon sign on my head flashing, "Not listening, not listening." In addition to being one of the least talented actors in Gotham, I was also one of the laziest. I've been told it's considered bad form for a director to give an actor a line reading. Not in my world. Tell me exactly how you want me to say it, and that's what I'll do. Less work for me. Now, back then, when you were an actor, you had to have an answering service, and you had to put their phone number on the resume you attached to your headshot. The headshot that you physically handed casting directors and agents because there was no such thing as email. I lived through this, and talking about it now, I have no idea how we survived. It was barbaric. German, spoken in the country where signs say, such and such is strengst verboten, strictly forbidden, because forbidden on its own is just too nuanced. Oh, calm down, French. You and your words that are 10 letters long with only 3 of them actually being pronounced. Okay, back to technology. It advances, doesn't it? One day, this thing appeared, an answering machine. It looked like a tape recorder, and if I'm remembering correctly, you had to put the phone jack in it, and then it had a cable that had to be inserted in the phone connection in the wall or something like that. I do not have a scientific mind. I do get the concept of how a jet works. Obviously, I have no idea about the details, but I at least understand the idea. Something creates a lot of thrust, and that lifts a ridiculously heavy object into the air for hours and hours. Okay. But I really, truly do not get computers. There's my laptop, and there's this little icon on it. And if I click on that, there's a 400-page document that I can print and hold in an icon on my computer. How is that possible? Where is the document in this flat little metal and plastic space? I asked my father that. He was an engineer. He said, it's a series of ones and zeros. Oh, okay, great. Now I get it. So yeah, answering machines. Amazing, no? Now people, agents, casting directors, boys could call your home and leave you a message if you weren't there to answer the phone. In the beginning, you did have to actually physically turn the dial on the machine and make the tape rewind so you could hear the messages. But then beepers were invented. You carried something the size of a deck of cards with you, and you would call your number from a pay phone and hold the beeper next to the mouthpiece of the phone and push it. And it would make a tone into the phone that your answering machine would hear and start playing back your messages. Amazing. It was almost as though we were living in modern times. Before those beepers existed, I had gone to stay at my parents' house for a week because I had just had rhinoplasty, a nose job, true story. And I was waiting to hear from a guy I had started dating. I am wacky for air quotation marks. But I'm in Connecticut and I can't check my answering machine because there weren't any beepers yet. And I was so cheeky. I still can't believe I did this. I called my neighbor and asked her to please get the super to let her into my apartment so she could check my answering machine and tell me who had called. Thank goodness there was no message from him, because you know I would have begged her to carry her landline to my apartment, plug it in there, and play the message from him 9 million times so I could obsess over it. I think his name was Michael, maybe Philip. I have no idea. May I just pause to say that if I had a buck for every time I reflected on the follies of my youth and asked myself, what were you thinking? I could take all of us to Paris for a long weekend, and I promise you, we would not be flying coach. I swear, I found every bad boy on the island of Manhattan, and I dated him. Because it's hormones, right? What else makes you act before you think? It's not just me, right? Hey, French, you've got 2 definite articles, and that is, in my book, 1 definite article too many. But at least you're not German, which has 3 definite articles and like 9 bazillion cases. But both of you, seriously, okay? 1 definite article, end of story. Okay, so then there was another guy, post nose job, and he left a message on my answering machine. And that was the basis of a sketch the other woman in the comedy group and I wrote and performed. Well, it wasn't the basis, it was the sketch. To paraphrase Truman Capote, we weren't writing, we were typing. I had asked her to come over to listen to his message and help me interpret it. And then we put that whole thing on paper and performed it. One of the guys in the group recorded the dialogue in the message. Oh, guess you're not home. Talk to you later. And the scene was Sue and me playing that over and over and over and over again and analyzing it. Did he sound sad to you? Sad that I wasn't home? Or do you think he sounded relieved? He did say, yeah, not you, right? I can't tell if that means he's feeling really comfortable with me or he's already started to take me for granted. He said, talk to you later. Should I call him? Does that mean he wants me to call him? Or does that mean he's gonna call me? I think his name was David, possibly John, I have no idea. Sue and I, on the other hand, are still very close friends. Girl power. The scene got big laughs every time we performed it. Lots of especially big laughs of recognition from the women in the audience. Well, you know, with experience comes wisdom, right? Eventually, I stopped worrying if anyone would call me because if they didn't, they weren't someone I wanted to hang out with. That did take some time, as it probably should, but I can't say I wouldn't love a chance to impart some of that fairly hard-earned knowledge to my younger self. What I would say to her is, you don't have to be a simultaneous translator at the United Nations, unless you want to be, because I'm sure that's a lovely career choice. My German isn't good enough for that. I would also tell her that a book will be written called He's Just Not That Into You, which you will wish had been published when you were in your early 20s. But by the time it comes out, you won't read it because you won't need it, because you'll have figured that out on your own. But you will find the movie version kind of cute. Okay, so I've been making fun of you a bit, German and French, but I have to say, I think it's quite lovely that you both most often say goodbye with words that mean until we see each other again. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Lizzy.
Thank you. That was lovely. Joe is next. Let's find Joe. Heidi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Have fun. I'll be here watching.
All right, let's find Joe. Gallery view. Unmute. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
And then, there you go.
And then that should be video.
Yeah, you should be there. Hello.
There I am. Hello.
And now I have to mute Heidi. Bye, Heidi. Hi, Joe. Thanks
Hello.
for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, here goes. So, in the summer of 2000, I ran the directing workshop for women at the American Film Institute. One of the filmmakers won Best Short at a film festival in Sochi, Russia. The festival director wanted to speak to me. A date and time was set. I called the international number with seemingly 100 digits and was connected to a staticky line. Someone answered, but they didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Russian, so I hung up. I waited a minute, and I tried again, thinking maybe they would find someone who spoke English. This time, I got a voice message, which was in Russian, and then in English. It was the correct number, and I left a message after the beep for a callback. Time passed, I didn't get a call, and I pretty much forgot about it. Then one day the phone rang, and it was the festival director. He was exuberant. The women make the movies, and you the training them. I thanked him for awarding the prize to the film, and he invited me to attend the festival. To get tickets, the festival office needed a copy of my passport to request the visa, which could take up to 6 weeks. I didn't have a passport at the time. Remember, this was back in 2001, before our world and our travel methods changed. But surprisingly, the rush service offered at the post office, yes, the US post office, worked. And in 6 business days, I had a passport. Seems weird that to get an official papers to travel to a foreign country, the post office is efficient. But to get the Vanity Fair with J-Lo on the cover the same month it is released, without it looking like the mailman's entire family has read the magazine in the bathroom, is impossible. Anyway, I fax a copy of my passport and I wait. 1 week before departure, I was instructed to pick up my tickets from the Aeroflot Los Angeles office. The tickets were round trip Los Angeles, Moscow, Los Angeles, departing June 4th and returning June 13th. 9 days in Russia. It was beginning to seem real. Except the festival wasn't in Moscow. It was in Sochi, over 1,000 miles from Moscow. I was assured that I would be handed tickets upon my arrival in Moscow. So, with a little bit of shaky faith, tickets partially in hand, I was going. Los Angeles to Moscow, over 6,000 miles. Aeroflot, the national airlines of Russia, departed LAX at 1:50 p.m. The plane was a 767. I was in seat 30H, near the rear, at a window with no one sitting next to me. It was a modern enough plane. The drink service was juice and or vodka, but it was fine. For a 12-hour flight, it all was fine. I was excited, so it may have seemed more fine than it was. The flight landed on time. We got out of the plane, onto the runway, and loaded onto a bus. The bus fills to capacity and heads towards the terminal, and just as we get there, it takes a sharp turn and races back to the plane. Where there, 3 more people got on the bus, and we turned around and headed back. Then into the terminal, down a hallway that dumps us into a low-ceiling, unair-conditioned pen where about 500 or 5,000 people wait. 2 stations open, everyone crams forward, everyone smokes, everyone yells, everyone has to wait. 1 station would close, and the crowd would murmur in anger, then another would open, and everyone would maniacally shift, hoping to get a place slightly closer in line than before. Then customs, with more of the same. Finally, to walk into the terminal felt freeing, except it was like a birth canal of people pushing from every direction. A taller Christina Ricci look-alike, with my name laser printed in English on a piece of paper, waited for me. We smiled and nodded, the crowd too loud to allow communication, so we pushed through and broke away from the throng. She turns and speaks to me in Russian. I widen my eyes, shrug my shoulders apologetically, and say, "English?" She frowns. No English. She seems to want to explain something to me and is frustrated not to be able to. We go outside and wait on the sidewalk, and she hands me the tickets to Sochi. I glance at them. They're in Russian. I can only make out that they are plane tickets and that they seem to be from Moscow to Sochi. We wait about 45 minutes at this crazed point in the airport where cars would pull up or pass and buses would drone by and horns would honk, and this guy in a uniform was in the middle of this mishmash of traffic trying to direct it with a whistle and with absolutely no luck. Christina Ricci seems to accost a strange man on the sidewalk. He grabs my rolling bag and takes off. We run after him quite a ways to his parked car. I couldn't figure out if he was who we were waiting for all that time or just someone she got to drive us. I get into the back seat of his four-door Kia and we're off. We drive on a freeway. It seems like almost any other freeway. I can see some businesses here and there. We even pass an IKEA. We were going away from the center of the city and we got onto a two-lane country road. Traffic in the other direction was quite heavy, but in our direction, it was moving along quite nicely. Then it didn't. We stop. A traffic jam. We wait. The driver gets agitated. Christina Ricci yells. Suddenly the driver shouts and cranks the steering wheel sharply to the right and we're off the road. Yep, on the grass. You know that feeling when the car is driving on the grass and you just know it's not right? Multiply that by a 12-hour flight, 3 hours in customs, and a non-English speaking greeter. I couldn't help but think, okay, this is where the kidnapping happens. Or, okay, this is where the real adventure begins. We swerve through some woods, dodging trees, and we come out ahead of the traffic jam, back on a paved surface. Now I was able to see the cause of the traffic jam. A large steamroller, like a city vehicle, was stopped in the road. There were 3 horses trying to pull it. There were men gathered around, and 2 of the horses were down on the road, which I'm pretty sure meant that the horses, like the steamroller, were dead. The domestic airport in Moscow is like an old US bus station from the 1930s. Cold, institutional, smaller than it should be. Inside was crammed with people. Not people like the international airport. These folks seemed like locals. My guides led me to a line that didn't look too long. They smile, wave, goodbye, and take off. I get to the head of the line, hand over my passport and ticket, and I'm frowned at by the female attendant. She says something in Russian. I look quizzical and say English. She shouts delayed and points back out to the concourse. Okay, I can deal. I search out the only monitors in the concourse and I find my flight and see that it is 5 hours delayed. So I go wait outside. After 4 hours and counting, I figure I should go and check on my flight. I went back into the airport, read the monitor, and see that the flight had been delayed 3 more hours. Finally, at 11 p.m., the plane was about to begin boarding. I got online again, waited till I was up at the head, handed over my passport and ticket, was okayed, and then it was another line in a hellish interior room to get to the airline counter to check my bag and get a seat assignment. After 45 minutes, I get to the front. I put my luggage on the belt and hand over my ticket and passport. The guy looks at my ticket and says something in Russian. I cock my head and squint. He gets a girl from the next counter, so she shouts, "Not today, tomorrow," and points that I leave the line. I try to explain. No one wants to hear. Back out at the airport concourse, there's a window, like in a foreign movie, a lone window with a wood little counter and on a big empty stone wall with the words Aeroflot in gold lettering written above the window. And at midnight, in this crazy little airport, there is someone back there who speaks English. I explain. I try to go slow, but I say how I need to get on this plane to get to Sochi now. I was on a panel in the morning and there was a press conference. She repeats back to me, now. And I lose my temper a bit and raise my voice. And she immediately gives me a ticket. Okay. Back in line for the passport check. Who knows what they're checking since I had gone through this line twice before and they never picked up that my ticket was for the wrong day. So back in line for the plane. Now it's closing in on 1:30 in the morning and I'm finally in line for the actual plane. Exhilarated and exhausted, I make it onto a bus that will take us to the airplane. The bus is packed to the gills. I'm sandwiched in the front near the door. The bus groans a sigh in preparation to move and stalls. The driver tries and tries, but the engine won't start. After 10 minutes, another bus pulls behind us, and we all get out and get onto that bus. This time, I was the third person on, so now I'm sardined deep inside, far from the door, far from air. Again, this bus sighs, getting ready to leave, and again, nothing. We wait. I expect another bus, but instead a tow truck shows up. We're indicated to remain on the bus as they hook it up to a tow truck and tow us to the plane. At last, the plane. It was a 3.5-hour flight to Sochi. It was already after 2 in the morning. On the tarmac was a big plane. There were 4 or 5 stairwells leading up to the plane, and each had a range of seat numbers posted by it. I was in seat 43, in the back of the plane. Up a flight of stairs, and I'm in the baggage compartment. I have no idea why I checked my bags when I could have just carried them and placed them in the berth like most of the other people. Then up another flight of stairs into the interior of the plane. Never had I ever imagined what was before me. It was gigantic. It was like a ballroom, except it was a plane. Later, I found out that it was a converted military plane. The ceiling must have been 15 feet up. There were no pretense of comfort. Bare fluorescent bulbs lit the space. The carpet had large holes in it here and there. There were seats missing. Luckily, my seat was there. There were other people who had to scramble to find something because their seat was just a few shards of metal jutting up from the ragged carpet. The most startling thing was the walls. They were dingy. Apparently once an industrial beige, now they were varying shades of brown. Upon closer inspection from my seat, I rub a finger on the wall, and the brown was caused by what looked like silt on the wall. Silt as if the plane had been underwater at some point in recent history. This was not reassuring. The engine started, the mammoth vehicle rattled. A stewardess who resembled Benny Hill in drag gave the safety drill. The person doing the announce over the intercom would explain something lengthy and detailed in Russian for a few minutes, and then at the very end say, "For our international travelers, please use your seatbelt." That's it. No exit info, no in case of water landing, though from watching Benny Hill, she had described it. But whatever, it wasn't that big of a deal. But then the plane's engines began to rev so loudly that everyone clenched their hands over their ears. And then the plane began shuddering so badly, I began to panic. I thought, surely there is no way this giant ballroom is going to be able to take off. But it was going to attempt it. It was shuddering and slamming to the left so badly that the overhead compartments began one by one to pop open. Luggage began to rain down on us. I covered my head with folded arms like the people around me and thought, this is bad. This is wrong. This could be trouble. Then my instinct was to pray. I thought of people in my life that give me joy, that give me love. So with my arms up, protecting my head, my eyes clenched shut, I pictured everyone I loved in the world, and I passed out. To be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
What
That
a
was wonderful. Thanks for doing this.
My dog thanks you. Sorry about that. This is why I have to be on mute at all times. But she applauds you. That was excellent. Thank you. Nick Ullett. Let's find Nick. There he is. He's right below you. Okay. Hi, Nick.
I can't see me at all.
Hold on. I just asked you to start your video.
Okay, start my video. Where? Ah, there you go.
Oh, there you are. How dramatic.
Ah, all right.
All right, then. Hold on.
What? Hold on for what?
No, just proceed whenever you feel it.
All right. On December the 26th, 2002, I called up my friend Apple. That's short for Royce D. Applegate. And I listened to his machine tell me to leave your message after the beep. And I spoke and told him that I'd have to miss his New Year's Eve party because I was taking Zoe, my youngest daughter, up to Big Bear to go skiing. Happy New Year, mate. I'll see you when I get back. And that was that. Apple was from Oklahoma, and I met him in 1968 at a workshop run by the Committee, improvisational theater group out of San Francisco. He'd just arrived from Dallas, and we both fell into the world of improvisational theater as though we had found the Holy Grail. For me, it was a way of dealing with the hermetically sealed world of being British, and for him, it was a way of being an intellectual without anyone noticing. It seemed that all we did for the next 3 years was improvise. We formed a group called the Synergy Trust that specialized in the improvisational form known as Harold. This was an entire show based on one suggestion from the audience. We, as the performers, never left the stage. The ensuing show varied in quality from the sublime to the inane. When it was bad, it was agonizing. When it was good, it was amazing. We had nights when the audience couldn't go home, when we were all swept up in a shared embrace of creativity that would force us out to roam the streets after the show, going from coffee houses to bars to people's homes, unwilling to give up the feeling of being connected to a greater spirit. We believed that we were living art. All right, I know. It sounds puerile, pretentious, and desperate. And perhaps we were all those things. But boy, we had a good time. Apple had been a pharmaceutical salesman and then a disc jockey in Dallas, where he discovered me and my partner in our comedy team on TV. He knew several of our routines. In LA, we became friends by working together. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we had afternoon workshops in which we learned all the improvisational games. Once we became part of the Synergy Trust, we just seemed to gravitate towards each other. We hung out, we performed, we played the guitar together, we wrote songs. We even created a comedy trio called the Tishman Building. And the reason for that name completely eludes me, as does the name of the young woman who was the third member. I do remember that we played the Ice House in Pasadena several times. The only real fight Apple and I ever had was when, during an improvised show at the Ash Grove, which is now the Improv of Melrose, I actually took off all my clothes on stage instead of miming it. Apple called a company meeting immediately after the show and announced that he wasn't prepared to be part of a group that pandered to an audience. We shouted, we yelled, we went home, and we all spent the night on the phone with each other. And as a group, we agreed that it wasn't necessary to include nudity in our bag of tricks, and that was that. Although I have to admit, I still have a fond memory of the elation of running stark naked through an audience and meeting up with my pal Pepe Serna, who had thoughtfully brought my clothes to the back of the theater. Royce Apple, went on to become a first-rate actor. His last role was the storekeeper, who was the town booster in The Rookie, Lovely. And over the years, we were always in touch. I have photographs of my son, aged 3, running around his pool in the apartment complex in which he lived that was called the Monastery. And later, photographs of him in our barn in upstate New York with my baby daughters in their underwear, standing in his huge cowboy boots and wearing his Stetson. They actually thought he was a real cowboy, and in his way, he was. Every now and then, Apple and I would work on something when it took our fancy. Among those oddities was a film about a crazed midget who stole Tutankhamun's golden treasures while they were being transported from the Smithsonian to Los Angeles, and also a play called Beware. This was a play about a young man working in a health food store who realizes that he's Jesus Christ. So he goes to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to find his roots. He becomes a rock idol, a leader of youth, and is eventually executed for crimes against the state. As they strap him into the electric chair, they ask him if he has any last words. "You blew it," he says, and disappears. All these brilliant pieces were written between the hours of 11 p.m. and dawn. I would arrive at the monastery and we would work while we listened to some esoteric music that Apple had come across. And I'd have a beer and he'd have a Pepsi in a large glass full of ice, which he crunched constantly. He'd turn on a tape recorder and we would dream up scenes and plots, explosions, affairs of the heart. Most of the times we would smoke dope. Often we would end the session with a glass of Southern Comfort, a truly disgusting drink, but one that somehow felt right with him. I would then stagger out into the early morning, and he would go to sleep. And then later in the day, write up our ramblings in some coherent form for us to argue about when we next we met. I loved those nights of music and invention. Every year, he would throw a big New Year's Eve bash. Songs to be sung, guitars to be played, a keyboard used with differing levels of ability, and always lots of dope and lots of friends. And usually, after all the guests had left, he and I would end up sitting companionably together with 2 glasses of Southern Comfort. As I was driving back home down from Big Bear on New Year's Day, I got a phone call saying that there had been a fire after his party and that Apple was dead. The last guests left about 3 a.m. and it appears that Royce D. Applegate fell asleep in his den in front of his TV. They worked out the fire started in that room from a halogen lamp. I chose to believe that he never woke up. Savagely as I drove, I thought through my tears I should have been there. But there was no beep and no message I could leave. Goodbye. Thanks.
That was lovely. Thank you, Nick. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I have moments.
Yeah. Thank you. Our friend Gordon is up. Are you ready, Gordon?
I'm here. I'm here.
Hi, Nick. Thank you. Cheers, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Cheers to Apple. Cheers to Apple.
Maybe. Do you hear me? Everybody? Am
You're-
I there, Liz?
You're there. You're there.
Okay. In the mid 1980s, I had an apartment on Oak Street in San Francisco with my friend Hanus Rhines and another guy, a sort of hanger-on named Julius. One night we were sitting around hanging out and we heard a jangly sort of clangorous sound and then a crash. It sounded like someone had thrown a tambourine out the window. So we went out into the courtyard and that was exactly what had happened. Someone had thrown a tambourine out the window. We took it and it became the house tambourine. Julius was a climber, a rock climber who spoke in the parlance of a 1950s hepcat, wore woolen clothes of a bygone era, and climbed the walls in the hallway. He had a friend, another climber, named Elliot. I happen to know that Elliot's brother once shat on a family's porch. So Julius's one friend was the brother of a porch shitter. There were other reasons that Hanus Rhines and I wanted to get away from Julius. The main reason was that we wanted to live with our friend, Robert. Robert lived in a rented house in the Sunset District. He had housemates, at least 3 of them. Robert's housemates didn't like Hanus or myself. They also harbored suspicions that Robert was trying to get them to move out so that he could move his friends in, which was basically true. Once when we had stayed late and crashed at Robert's, one of his housemates came in and turned on the light and asked us to leave. She was a controlling sort of person and a nudist. We called her Julie the Controller. Amazingly, late in the spring or early summer, two of Robert's housemates, including Julie the Controller, both moved out. At the same time, Julius decided to leave town. So Heinous and I packed up the house tambourine and our other stuff and moved into Robert's house in the Sunset. It was a big house, spacious, as Robert liked to say, with bedrooms, bathrooms, a basement, converted rooms, a garage, and a backyard. We never saw the sun, especially in the summer, but we didn't care. Heinous Rhines and Robert had a subversive singing duo called the Stretchlinks. They sang some fairly strange shit, honestly, but in a disarmingly tuneful and pleasant manner. The house tambourine can be heard in some of their songs. Privately, I was developing my own art persona called Nib Gables. I made booklets, cards, and calendars, which I mailed to anyone who wanted them, and some who didn't. Together, we made films and videos, including a 3-minute telling of the Bible, a self-help instructional called Your Body, Environment, and You, in which I taped ham to my face. I forget what the benefits are, but at the time, I thought it was worth advocating for. We also did a cooking show called Cooking with the Mob, in which I played a go-go dancing adulterer named Lorraine. None of these film or video projects ever reached a wide audience, or any audience at all. In fact, we didn't think there was a place for us in society. So the house was sort of an irrational ideas think tank. Our own concise alternate reality was nearly complete, except for one stumbling block, the other housemates, who we'll call Beans, and her boyfriend, Pork. Pork was in a known band and had charms, but was mostly an insufferable, overbearing sort of person. When he was home, he was always in your business, loud, eating all the food, and smarmy. Beans was fun on her own. She had a white rat that she took around with her, and she was fun and funny. But when Pork was home, they were of one mind and paid one rent for the two of them, the same amount we each paid, which was $225 a month, if you must know. All we wanted was to have the house to ourselves so we could foment our ideas. When Pork was away on the road with his band, Heinous Rhines and Beans became close and spent time together. Sometimes all of us hung out. On one such occasion, we went to a sushi restaurant where we drank sake until we were giddy. On the way home, we stopped at a liquor store in search of more sake. There was none, so we settled on vodka. That evening, we had people coming over to play music. By the time they arrived, we were in no condition. I don't think any music got played, but we did abuse our friends. I poked Stevie Ray Goldstein in the face with a drumstick and gave him a fat lip. He was unhappy about that. The crux of the evening came when Robert, who could be unpredictable at times, climbed up on a table and proclaimed, "I got a gun, I got some bullets, and I shot somebody. What do you think of that?" Pandemonium ensued. At some point, I realized that Robert had disappeared into the night. So I got my camera, a Brownie, with a flash, and went out looking for him with another guy. We found him a few blocks from the house. I took his picture in front of an old school bus, and we convinced him to go back home. Then the evening took a dark turn. I didn't see any of them for several days. The next time I spoke to Heinous Rhines, it was by phone. He was out somewhere and he called me. I was late picking up. I heard the beep and the answering machine turning on, but didn't feel like going out into the other room to turn it off. Rhines told me that during that evening, he and Beans went into the upstairs bathroom and got in the tub with their clothes on and had a heart-to-heart talk. Beans confided that whenever Pork was away, she was all over town with all kinds of guys, including one of Pork's close friends, a long-haired three-named country singer, an unmitigated jackass, who took her to orgies. She even had a little fling with Julie the controller. Despite all that, Beans said she loved Pork. And I quote, "He's the light of my life, but he ignores me sexually." After Rhines filled me in on more poignant and exhausting details, we hung up and I didn't think much more of it until later that evening when Robert came to my door and said that there was a very interesting message on the machine, which he wanted to discuss. Later, I made a drawing of the light bulb with a big smile on its face and a caption that read, "You're the light of my life. Please ignore me sexually." A few months later, Pork and Beans moved out, leaving a mess. In their absence, our dream of having our own alternate reality household reached full bloom. But not long after, I moved to New York for love. Alternate realities are not forever. But while it lasted, I did everything I wanted to. I'd taped ham to my face and danced in a cocktail dress. I'd even walked on the moon and played a key role in a sex instruction video. For what it's worth, I'm still Nib Geebles, and Heinous Rhines is still heinous. Robert still produces commercial and instructional videos, but now for a wider audience. If I had to guess who has the house tambourine, I would say it was Robert. Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wow, Gordon, things really did take a dark turn.
They did, yeah.
But now it's time for Hutch.
Time for me. Why do I always do that? I always sing things to you. I'm not quite sure what that's about. All right, so this is a piece that I found in my archives when I had a blog back in the day. And it's dated 2010, so 10 years ago. But I'm going to give it a shout out. It's the first time it's performed here and now. At our house, Easter doesn't start until the rains. Usually a precarious task done by me. Precarious in that after making sure everything's prepared and ready to go, I would ring the doorbell, then I'd quickly run down the front stairs, shimmy around the treacherous avocado tree, skedaddle up the side of the house, across our dwindling lawn, making sure to dodge various canine landmines, in through the back door just in time to join my family for a rousing chorus of, I wonder who that could be. The air would be thick with wonderment and anticipation as Sebastian would pronounce, I bet it's the Easter Bunny, while Maxie would try to keep from hyperventilating. Michael and I would then put on our faux skeptic voices, articulating something like, do you think so? I'm not sure. Were you good kids this year? Then very tentatively, the two of them would open the front door. And when they'd see their shiny new Easter baskets filled with desirable treasures glittering in the sunlight, the looks on their faces were of utter astonishment. And that look is crazy addictive. No wonder parents force upon their children these types of shenanigans year after year. Traveling during Easter takes a little extra planning. Not only do we have to purchase ahead of time the Cadbury eggs, the Peeps, the multiplication flashcards, possibly the worst Easter gift ever, but also we need to find a trustworthy hotel who will follow our simple instructions. 1. Leave the previously arranged baskets outside our front door on Easter morn at 8 a.m. sharp. 2, knock loudly. And 3, get the fuck out of there. Surprisingly, we've had no problem with this method until this year. Sebastian and Maxie love Easter. For them, there is no religious connotation, no crucifixion, no resurrection, no blood of the lamb dogma interfering with Easter bunny jollification. It's simply egg hunts and sugar. This year, their baskets were sent by my stepmother, Deanna, or as she wants the kids to call her, true story, Danana. And like most presents sent from Danana, they were far too cutesy, meant for children even younger than mine. Her baskets were plush and in the shapes of a pink bunny and a white ducky. They arrived in the mail the week before, and I wasn't sure how to explain them to the kids because up to that point, the Easter bunny always provided the baskets, not the step-grandmother. But Sebastian informed us we could leave Danana's empty baskets out the night before, and he was pretty sure the Easter bunny would fill them. Mini crisis averted. I shouldn't have worried. It seems that our Easter traditions are always being altered. Last year was the first time we went to my aunt's house in Palm Springs for an Easter egg hunt. The hunt, however, was on Saturday and not the traditional Sunday, and it was quite obvious the older cousins were hiding the eggs, not the Easter bunny. But these discrepancies didn't seem to worry my children as long as they got their chocolate bunnies and Twizzlers. This year, we returned to the desert, choosing to stay at the elegant, bougainvillea-spattered Parker Meridian. If there's any hotel to trust with carrying out our Easter bunny subterfuge, it would be the Parker. Sebastian woke up on Easter morning at 7:23 a.m. He asked if he could go open the hotel room door. I told him he knew the routine. He'd have to lie back down and wait for the knock. But why, he complained petulantly. I tried to calm him down, but his fidgeting ended up waking Maxie and Michael, and the four of us just lay there, wide awake, waiting for the Easter bunny to knock. 8 o'clock finally rolled around. However, our hotel room door remained resolutely knock-free. At 8:05, I peeked into the hall where there were no Easter goodies on the dizzying honeycomb carpet. 8:10, still no baskets. 8:15, I took my fourth peek into the hallway, and at this point, both children were whiny and operating at such a pitch, it was driving me batshit crazy. Teaching children patience drains me of mine. So at 8:18, I got dressed saying something like, I better go make sure the Easter bunny didn't get lost, and went to the lobby to find out what the holy fuck went wrong. The Parker Meridian in Palm Springs is a beautiful hotel with spectacularly manicured gardens. To get to the front desk, I had to wend my way across the croquet lawn, by the marshmallow roasting fire pit, through a palm tree glade festooned with inviting hammocks perpendicular to the left, around a few Mexican tiled fountains, and bypassing the fancy schmancy restaurant where, honest to God, you can enjoy a lobster frittata with Savruga caviar for $1,000. If you get it with beluga, it's a mere $100. Our server told us they never sold the Savruga frittata, but will serve up to 10 belugas a day. A beautiful young woman with an Anne Hathaway smile greeted me at the front desk. I asked about the baskets. She smiled even wider, if that could be possible, and said that she made sure they were delivered to room 54. We're in room 51, I corrected. I've never seen a smile crumble quite so fast. Her demeanor changed drastically from Anne Hathaway to Ruth Buzzy. She stuttered a bit and then got onto her headset looking like a soap star CIA operative. Where are the baskets? Abort mission. Repeat, abort. A silver-haired gent wearing a fuchsia sports jacket which matched the plentiful bougainvillea was at my side in no time. He was told of the mix-up and he couldn't believe such a snafu could happen under his watch. Not at the Parker. Then he jumped into action. Follow me. I did as I was told, but to be honest, his SWAT-like demeanor was diminished entirely by his blazer, the color of a Chilean flamingo. I followed him into our hallway. First, he knocked timidly on room 54's door, and then to my satisfaction, he got out the master key and barged on in. But no one was there. He got on his headset to get the profiles of room 54's occupants. Someone on the other end, I imagine Anne Hathaway's smile twin, informed him the guests in room 54 were an elderly couple who very well might not have an interest in plushy baskets filled with kiddie DVDs, plastic watches, and according to my husband, the cutest socks you've ever seen. Silver Fox seemed more than determined and assured me he was going to search the grounds. For the baskets? For the couple? For a sports jacket not quite so offensive to the eye? He believed if the occupants of room 54 did take the baskets, they must have thought it was part of the hotel's mystique. His word. I was relieved Silver Fox was on the case. He seemed dedicated to getting to the bottom of this mystère. My word. As I was returning to our room, I was struck with the fact that the only way out of this minor catastrophe was to blatantly lie to the children, which I hate. But when I opened the door to room 51, Sebastian bequeathed to me an unexpected explanation. I think the Easter Bunny is caught in traffic. I was unaware the Easter Bunny drove, but I didn't flinch. Is that what you think? No lie. Awkward moment averted. But then he asked, where are Danana's Easter baskets? And all I could think to say was, hey, let's go swimming. Distraction I could do. Lying, not so much. As the hours ticked by, our chances of seeing those Easter baskets once more were getting slimmer and slimmer, something I learned from CBS formulaic crime dramas. And by the time we checked out at 2:30, I knew they were gone for good. The folks at the Parker felt horrible. They ended up deducting from our bill $150 worth of services, including our Easter breakfast. Had I known that, you better believe I would have ordered one of those lobster frittatas smeared with savruga. Michael and I called our good friend Andrew to see if he could do anything to salvage the moment. Uncle Andrew is the family dog sitter, bottle washer, and overall Yenta cum cabana boy. If he couldn't wrangle us a few Easter trinkets at this late date, then no one could. He didn't answer his phone, however, and our call went to voicemail. After the beep, Michael left his SOS. Diva, Mayday, we need 2 Easter baskets filled to the brim. Stat, ours were stolen by a geriatric Bonnie and Clyde. About to drive back from the desert, should be home in 2 hours. We'll repay you in fruity martinis and love slaves. When we pulled into the front of our house, there on the welcome mat were 2 new baskets filled with fake grass, stickers, books, and Reese's peanut butter Easter eggs. The children didn't think it was strange at all. In fact, as chocolate smeared their mouths and fingers, any questions of missing baskets or the Easter Bunny's bad traffic karma melted away entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Hutch. But what happened to the baskets?
Gone for love, Danana's baskets, they were on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, I hear Claire. Is that Claire?
Yeah, I have to put myself on mute as soon as possible. Sorry. Unmute audio. Here's Alex Alpharaoh, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
how's
Alan.
it going? Can everyone hear me?
There he is. Hey, buddy.
Like your
Great
background.
job. I know, thanks. All right, can everyone hear me? I'm assuming yes. All right.
Yeah.
These last few weeks have been a tough year as hand sanitizer and toilet paper disappear from store shelves. People's sanity becomes unclear because we have never dealt with a situation like this. Fear steers in and out of our consciousness, making the isolation feel like madness. Access is denied to the old way of life. People are required to stay inside. This is the new normal. Shit is real, like Cardi B says. Children are learning to adapt to virtual recess as the economy begins to depress due to a global virus, making our elders and sick the highest at risk. I started writing about my own views during this pandemic, but I decided to let the media hit you with that rhetoric because, plainly speaking, I'm fucking tired. I'm tired of feeling afraid. I'm tired of playing brave. I'm tired of being concerned about how the fuck I'm going to earn some pay. I'm tired of being paranoid at every minor ache and pain. I'm tired of being in my apartment, but I have no reason to complain. There are people that are sleeping in tents underneath the 101's fast lane still. I'm tired of all the misinformation and worry, even as I come off of disability and my engagements were put on pause indefinitely. So forgive me if I don't take your call and request you leave your message after the beep. I really don't care to speak about the same damn thing for the 100th time this week. I'm sure I'm being antisocial, and for that, I'm sorry. I know we're supposed to all hold virtual hands and sing along to "We Are the World," but the world is dying. I'm in a constant tug of war between my anxiety and my depression. Thank God for the few tools I picked up through my therapeutic lessons. So as my mental health lessens and I feel myself becoming more unhinged, I occupy my time by writing or going on a Netflix binge, doing anything to avoid any real human contact unless it's absolutely necessary. I know to those who don't know me, I may come off as detached and uncaring. This is just too overbearing. I tend to do much oversharing. True story is usually where my laundry gets airing. Anyhow, I've been pretty successful. I've been pretty successful at avoiding interaction, which has also minimized my social media traction. A call to action here, a FaceTime session there, some Zoom conference to keep panic out my hair. But there is one person whose call I always take regardless of how I feel. Aileen, my daughter, the high school senior, who was looking forward to going to prom. Instead, she got stuck in Riverside after she went to visit her mom. We chat every day. For her, I feign being calm. I reassure her that there will be many more dances, but we both know that this is a long-earned rite of passage, an experience that this pandemic is snatching. A day or so passes. She calls me crying, frustrated and anxious. Daddy, Renards may also cancel graduation. I know people are dying and human life is more important, but why did our government allow this to get out of proportion? I should have screened the call. But what would my excuse be for not answering? Daddy was too busy losing his shit behind closed walls. Daddy doesn't know how he's going to pay the bills. Daddy's paranoid of itchy throat and cold chills. Yet still, I pick up, put myself together. Remind Aileen that we will weather through this weather. I remind her to focus on her acceptance letters. Then the conversation shifts. We begin talking about the universities she's going to pick. And for a moment in the day, there is lightness in our tones. We laugh about how fat we look through the screens on our phones. I've probably gained 10 pounds from the Rona diet. I tell her she looks beautiful. She says, "Oh, be quiet. You only say that because you're my dad, but low key, start working out, Papa, because you are getting fat." We laugh. Then she becomes a little adult. She asks me if I'm okay and if I have enough to eat. I ask her if her mom is being safe at the hospital she works at 5 days a week. I confess that I've been spending some time in her room, sitting in her couch while I conference on Zoom. She says she doesn't mind, but from time to time, she asks me if her things have been moved. I remind her that I respect her space, but that her cleaning skills need to improve. I let her know that it's my way of communing with her essence and energy, that her presence is sorely missed. And even though sometimes she views me as an enemy, any day without her is an eternity to this. Then she says, "Daddy, when can I come home?" Well, once the ordinance is lifted and it's safe for us to roam. We go back and forth as the call logs about 11 minutes. Then I hear in the background some little kids screaming, "Shit. Sorry, Dad. I gotta go. Haley just broke Noah's Xbox control. See why I want to come home? These kids are driving me insane. I love you, Dada. I'll talk to you later. Bye." She hangs up. A few moments later, I cry. The worry creeps deep inside. What if I don't get to see her again? What if this quarantine is just not a means to an end? What if I get sick and die alone in our apartment, causing my daughter's soul to forever darken the way mine was after my father passed? What if my mother has dementia? What if my brother gets killed in the streets? What if my sister's husband gets deployed away from me? Ain't her just breathe. Breathe. Inhale, a 3 count. Release on a count of 12. Repeat. Feel the ground underneath your feet. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Visualize a calm, peaceful place within your imaging. You are safe. You are okay. Keep breathing. Locate 5 objects you can see that are circular. Find 4 objects you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, 1 thing that you can munch. Ground yourself. I'm back. So even as the cries of conspiracy theories echoed throughout the paranoid minds of the non-believers, the doubt sowers who think a lower age demographic is somehow immune to being touched by the tragic, maybe they're just in denial. Maybe they believe this is some kind of trial and tribulation created by political motivation, which is somehow tied to our eternal salvation. But I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just trying to get out of my own mind and out of my own way, because life will continue one way or another. We will get through this in one form or another. And yeah, life will never be the same. From the way we enjoy sports games, to the way we experience plays, to even how we interact in our daily lives, sacrifices will be made in order for us to survive. And maybe in time, we will put this behind. But for now, we just have to stay put inside. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, everybody. I want to try and get the folks who read so we can see their faces one more time. Here we go. There's Joe. Hi, where's Angela? Hi, I want to see everybody.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
See you now. Who am I
Hi.
guess is, oh, here's Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey,
Thank you.
I know. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
This starts basically making me think that we're back to Tommy. Can you see me?
Feel me, feel me.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Thank you very much. I knew somebody would get that reference eventually.
So,
Is
Michael's
it over now?
Patty,
Hey, what's up, Mike?
I'm so sorry we got bombed. I mean, you know, I guess blowjob bombed. I don't know what to call it. Zoom bomb.
That was wild. I put on the screen and I'm like, whoa, I came into the wrong conversation.
I'm sorry, but I had to do it.
I was gonna say.
Whoa, that was something else. That was something else.
So next month, May 3rd, and I did not plan ahead. This was completely unforeseen, but the theme is care package. Seems to kind of work.
And we'll all need one.
Yay, Lizzy! Lizzy!
Hey.
Woo, Lizzy!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, take care of each other, and if you need anything, please let me know.
Ditto, ditto.
Hi, Claire.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mwah, mwah.
You.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Be well, stay well.
You know, we're an amazing group of people. Yeah. You know, we're the most bizarre group of people I've ever come across.
Really?
I can't wait for us all to gather together in some small bar downtown.
Yeah,
Yes.
Why are you here?
it just works.
Indeed.
Amen.
Great stories. Thank you.
Good night.
All right, that's it.
Thank you all so much. Good night. Be well.
Good night.